My name is Janelle, and I'm a 21-year-old French student from France, and the following events took place April 2021. Tired of waiting for true love, I decided to lose my virginity with my best friend. Afterwards, I found a fantastic boyfriend and we got along wonderfully for 3 months. Then, he threw me away for still being in love with his ex, and yes, I'm still upset about it. Fragile little thing that I am, I made my first suicide attempt, went to the ER, and then landed in a mental hospital. Even with treatment, I was depressed for a few months, and I had a strong penchant for alcohol. What better way to continue my cycle of self-destruction than with dating apps? A few weeks after being released from the hospital, I matched with new people and forgot all about my dear ex. I always met the men at home because that's what I did on my actual first dates, and I didn't know any better. One day, I matched with a guy we'll call Matthew. He wasn't very handsome, and he had a few extra pounds, but I'm not Beyonce either, so I agreed to meet. We laughed a little and shared common interests, especially smoking weed. I was already planning to smoke some joints before sex. He told me his address. I didn't know if it was real. He also mentioned where he used to work, but he'd just gotten fired. I didn't care if he had a job or not. I didn't want a life with him. I explained that I was recently released from a mental clinic, that I was still fragile and depressed. It was all to make him understand that he couldn't play with me, that I was looking for sex, but also conversation and hugs. I wasn't looking for a one-night stand. He assured me that's what he wanted too, that he was actually quite cuddly. I thought he was perfect. After only a couple of days of talking, we agreed on a mojito party at my house, and he brought some joints. Matthew arrived, and he looked even worse than his photos. He was dirty, he had greasy hair, and his shirt was stained. He was also dressed like a teenager despite being 26. In short, I was far from wetting my panties, but in desperate need of company. I asked him to make some drinks while I chose a movie, and he prepared 2 mojitos before joining me on the couch. We talked a little, and he wasn't particularly smart or very interesting, so I downed my drink, hoping to liven up the party. Thus began a 3-day blackout. According to our dear Matthew, we drank and smoked during the movie, and then went to the bedroom. I vaguely remember being naked in bed, and him looking down at me before turning to slam the door. My phone was dead, so my alarm clock wasn't ringing. After missing a work appointment, my friends grew worried and called my sister when they couldn't reach me, but her phone also went to voicemail. My friends came to my house, but still didn't get an answer, so they called the fire department. Firemen managed to open the main door, but not the door to my apartment. They knocked while calling my name, and I opened the door wearing nothing but a blanket, staring at them with incomprehension. They concluded I was hungover, and my friends helped me get dressed. And that's when they noticed my body was covered with yellow betadine. I said that I burned my arm the previous day, but there were no signs of any burn, nor do I own betadine. They took my cat and I to one of their houses since I was practically catatonic. I had trouble speaking or even thinking. The next day, my sister picked me up and I stayed with her for a few days. Everyone was convinced I tried to kill myself. I started to complain about pain in my vulva and excess blood loss, so my sister drove me to the hospital. I explained that I may have had unprotected sex while unconscious, and they gave me an AIDS vaccine before taking samples from everywhere. I was advised to file a complaint and redirected to OB emergency care. The next morning, I finally regained consciousness, and my relatives immediately saw that I was a bit more coherent. I had more swabs done, and over the course of a week, I made a series of appointments for blood and urine samples. I also filed a complaint with testimony from my friends and sister. In the course of discussing it with others, especially medical staff and police, the term organ trafficking was mentioned more than once. They think that the guy chickened out at the last minute. Despite my complaint, a bed full of betadine, my underwear being torn off, and the blood on my doors, my attacker got away, and I'll never know what really happened or what he really wanted. I would like to point out that I used to drink and smoke in addition to my treatments, but I've never had a 3-day blackout. I'm pretty sure he put something in my drink. Anyway, it was nice to talk about it. Thank you. This story happened about 2 months ago. My parents decided it would be a good idea to allow my younger sister and I to shop for our own clothes. They thought it would be a good experience for us. So we went to the mall. My parents gave us enough money to purchase at least one outfit. After deciding where we would meet up, they gave us a time limit and some advice on which shops to visit. I was fairly apprehensive about the whole thing. I'm a socially awkward, extremely anxious teen, and I was very paranoid of something bad happening. My sister, who's only a few years younger, was excited. She was more competent with social interactions, so I often relied on that ability. We decided to go to H&M since we were most familiar with their clothes. We took our time, ultimately deciding to return later. When we left the store, I accidentally made eye contact with a random guy who was walking off to the right, and I immediately got a really bad feeling about him. I can't really explain it, but my gut was telling me to get out of there. I started pulling my sister in the opposite direction and noticed the guy turning back towards us. I began panicking, and my sister finally noticed what was happening. I told her to keep holding my hand and quickly started walking in random patterns between the different sides of the mall. I wanted to see if he was really following us and if I could lose him. He followed our every move. He had no bags, no walkie-talkie, no phone. He was dressed in dark clothes that obscured his identity quite well. Luckily, we managed to reach the escalator, ran down the steps. By the time he reached it, we were already running into a family store to be around the employees. We didn't see the guy again, and my parents stayed with us for the remainder of the visit. I'm extremely lucky to have noticed before my sister and I were possibly hurt.